Ngozi grew up in a bustling city where ambition and success were everything. She was a woman with dreams, a beautiful, intelligent young woman with a clear vision for her life. But in a society where expectations ran deep, she often found herself caught between what she wanted and what her family and her culture expected of her. At 27, Ngozi had carved a path for herself as a rising star in the marketing world. Her reputation was immaculate and her personal life was under control, or so she thought. Then she met Chike. Chike was everything Ngozi thought she wanted in a partner: charming, successful, and with an undeniable magnetism that drew her in from the first time they met. He was ambitious, like her, and he understood the hustle. Their first date felt like destiny. Everything clicked, and before long, they were inseparable. But there was a darkness lurking beneath the surface of their fairy tale. Ngozi began noticing small unsettling things about Chike that didn't add up. His family was wealthy, yes, but something about the way he talked about his upbringing didn't sit right with her. He was always quick to hide his past, shifting conversations whenever she asked deeper questions, but his warmth and charm distracted her, and the allure of what could be a perfect family, a future together, kept her from digging deeper. Ngozi's friends, though, weren't as blind to Chike's oddities as she was. They warned her, "Watch out for him, he's too good to be true." But Ngozi dismissed their concerns, believing she was in control, that she was smarter than falling for any traps. Everything seemed perfect until one fateful night when Ngozi found out she was pregnant. At first, the news of her pregnancy sent a wave of joy through Ngozi's heart. She had always envisioned having a family, and Chike, despite his mysterious past, seemed like the man she could build that dream with. But as the weeks passed, something shifted. Chike's initial excitement was palpable, but slowly the support she expected from him began to fade. He became distant, his calls less frequent, and his once constant affection for her waned. Ngozi couldn't understand it. They had talked about starting a family together. This was supposed to be the next chapter in their lives, the one they had both dreamed of. But every time she brought up the baby, Chike dodged her questions, offering excuses or changing the subject. Deep down, Ngozi began to feel that something wasn't right, and the nagging feeling grew stronger as her belly began to show. Still, she trusted him. After all, she had no reason to. It wasn't until one evening when Ngozi went to visit Chike at his apartment that the truth came crashing down. She had just walked in when she overheard a conversation through the thin walls. Chike's voice, usually so smooth and confident, now had a tone of desperation. "You said you wouldn't do it. I didn't sign up for this. She can't keep the baby," he was saying. Her heart raced as she stood frozen, listening to the rest of the conversation. I know. I will take care of it. Just give me more time," a woman's voice replied. "But what about the engagement party? You promised your family. Everything needs to stay perfect. Don't let her ruin it." At that moment, Ngozi's stomach twisted in knots. She wanted to scream, to burst into the room and demand answers, but her legs felt like lead. Her world was shattering before her eyes. The man she had trusted with her heart, her future, and now the life of their child, was planning to abandon them. Chike's betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a betrayal of everything she had believed about their love, about the future they had planned together. The next few days were a blur. Ngozi confronted Chike, demanding the truth. He tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was irrefutable. He had been lying to her about everything: his family, his intentions, even his feelings. The baby wasn't part of his plan, and he had no intention of being a father. "I never wanted this, Ngozi. I thought we were just having fun," Chike confessed coldly. "But you You got too attached. You don't understand what this would do to my career, to my reputation. My family will never accept this. Their words felt like daggers to Ngozi's heart. Her dreams of a happy family, her vision of building a life with him were shattered in an instant. For the first time, Ngozi saw the full extent of her mistake. She had ignored all the signs, all the warnings. She had been blinded by love and ambition, too caught up in the excitement of what could be to see the reality of who Chike truly was. Now, with nowhere to turn, she was forced to make a decision. Would she stay and fight for her baby and the life she had dreamed of, or would she walk away from Chike and start over, alone but with a stronger sense of self? Ngozi's heart ached as she packed up her things and left Chike's apartment for the last time. The weight of the betrayal felt heavy on her shoulders, but something inside her was waking up. She wasn't going to let this man or anyone else define her or her future. She was going to raise her child on her own, and she was going to do it with strength. The next few weeks were a mix of pain and clarity. Ngozi moved into a small, modest apartment in a quieter part of the city. It wasn't the luxury part of the city. It wasn't the luxury she was used to, but it felt like a fresh start. She threw herself into her work, determined to stay focused on the future and not let herself be consumed by what had happened. But it wasn't easy. The shame of being pregnant and abandoned weighed on her. There were times when she cried alone at night, wondering if she had made the right choices in her life. She missed the woman she used to be, the one full of hope and confidence before the betrayal and heartbreak. Ngozi's mother, whom she had always confided in, became a pillar of support. She reminded Ngozi that she was strong, that her worth was not defined by Chike's rejection. You will give birth to a child who will grow to be better than any man who has ever hurt you. Her mother would say, "You have everything within you to make this work." Then, despite her mother's encouraging words, Ngozi still felt the weight of judgment. Her friends, who had once admired her success, now whispered behind her back. Some even pitied her, assuming she had made a foolish mistake. Her pride fought against the hurt, but the truth was that every glance, every whisper stung deeply. As her pregnancy progressed, Ngozi became more determined. She threw herself into preparing for the arrival of her child. Every decision she made now revolved around creating a future that was safe and secure for her baby. She started attending parenting classes, reading books on raising a child on her own, and even began planning for her child's education, determined that no child of hers would ever experience the same kind of pain she had. One afternoon, while at a local cafe with her mother, Ngozi bumped into someone she hadn't seen in years, Ada, an old college friend. Ada had always been supportive of Ngozi, and her warmth now felt like a breath of fresh air. "What happened to you, Ngozi?" Ada asked after hearing about her recent outbreak. "I heard about Chike, but you are still standing. That says a lot about who you are." Ngozi smiled weakly. "I'm trying to be strong, but it's not easy." Ada looked her in the eyes. "You know what they say? Before you let anyone father your child, make sure you can father the kind of life you want for that child. It's not just about love or lust, it's about having a partner who understands that the choices we make affect not just us, but the lives of those we bring into this world." Ada's words hit Ngozi like a ton of bricks. She had spent so much time trying to fix what was broken, trying to make Chike fit the life she had imagined. But Ada was right. Her child deserved better. She deserved better. From that moment on, Ngozi made a vow to herself and her unborn child. She would no longer settle. She would build a life that was hers and hers alone, one that didn't depend on anyone else's validation. By the time Ngozi's baby arrived, she was a different woman, stronger, wiser, and filled with a new sense of purpose. Her daughter, Nneka, was the light of her life, and though she had faced hardships and heartbreak, Ngozi now saw the beauty in her struggle. As Nneka grew, Ngozi poured everything she had into raising her. She built a business, worked hard, and made sure to always be there for her daughter. She didn't need a man to define her or her worth. She was complete on her own. Years later, when Ngozi looked back at her journey, she could see how everything had led to this point. The pain had been necessary, the lessons had been harsh, but they had shaped her into the woman she had become, the woman she had always been meant to be. As Nneka grew into a strong, independent young woman, Ngozi shared with her the lessons she had learnt. Before you let anyone father your child, she would tell her daughter, make sure they are someone who will help you build the life you deserve, because your happiness, your future, and your worth are yours to protect. Ngozi had learnt the hard way, but she had come out on top, and now she would make sure her daughter never had to repeat her mistakes. Nneka was 10 years old when the questions began. Mommy, why don't I have a daddy like the other kids in school? She asked one evening after dinner, her small eyes wide with innocence and curiosity. Ngozi had rehearsed this conversation in her mind 1,000 times, but nothing prepared her for the sting of hearing it out loud. She took a deep breath, then knelt to her daughter's eye level. You have me, Ngozi said softly, brushing Nneka's curls from her forehead. And I have you. That's more than enough. But the other kids, Nneka began. I know, Ngozi interrupted gently. One day, when you are older, I will tell you the full story. For now, just know that I chose you. I chose to bring you into this world with love, and I will always choose you. Nneka nodded slowly, sensing her mother's pain, and even at 10, she understood enough not to press further. But the moment haunted Ngozi long after her daughter went to bed. As Nneka entered her teenage years, Ngozi's challenges evolved. The world wasn't always kind to children from single-parent homes. Nneka, brilliant and outspoken, often found herself fending off whispers and assumptions. During a school open day event, a teacher once said to Ngozi, "You must be so proud raising her on your own. But you know how these girls can get at this age. Without a father figure, it's easy for them to drift." Ngozi smiled politely, but her fist clenched beneath the table. Later that night, she wept, not from hurt, but from rage. She realized that her journey wasn't just about survival, it was about confronting and changing the silent judgment placed on women like her. She decided it was time to stop just building a life. She would build a legacy. Ngozi began hosting a monthly women's circle, small gatherings where single mothers came together to share, support, and learn. It started with 5 women, then 15. Soon, she was asked to speak at events, mentor young girls, and even write columns in local women's magazines. One article titled "Not Broken, Just Unmarried" went viral. In it, Ngozi wrote, "They told us we were incomplete, that without a ring or a man, we were half women, but we are the whole story. The struggle, the triumph, the sleepless nights, the fierce hugs, the laughter in storms. We are not broken, we are warriors, and we are raising warriors." She was invited to speak at a women's summit, standing before hundreds. Her voice trembled at first, but then she locked eyes with a young woman in the crowd, pregnant, alone, scared, and Ngozi's voice found its power. I was abandoned, rejected, but I was never defeated. I built my home with love, not lies. And today, my daughter doesn't just have a mother, she has a role model. Applause thundered through the hall. Meanwhile, years passed, and then, unexpectedly, Chike came back. He showed up outside her office one afternoon, looking older, thinner, but still wearing that same polished smile. Ngozi, he said, as if time hadn't scotched the bridge between them. I heard about your work and about our daughter. Ngozi stared at him, his tailored suit, his carefully rehearsed humility. She's not our daughter, Ngozi replied coldly. You gave up that right years ago. I made mistakes, he began. I was stupid, I panicked, but I want to be a part of her life now. I think she deserves to know her father. Ngozi laughed bitterly. Is it guilt, or is it because the world finally noticed me, and you want a piece of the light you tried to snuff out? Chike sighed. Can we just talk? Maybe dinner, just the three of us. Ngozi studied him. Then she said, if you want to meet Nneka, you need to earn it, not with words, but with actions. Be the man you pretended to be, and maybe, just maybe, I will let her decide. Nneka, now 17, was given the choice to meet her biological father. She agreed with calm strength that mirrored her mother's, but the meeting was brief. I know who my father is, she said to Chike after listening to him for 20 minutes. She's the one who taught me how to fight, how to rise, how to be kind but never weak. So thanks, but I'm good. Chike left with a bowed head. By the time Nneka got into university, Ngozi's business had expanded across the region. She started a scholarship fund for young single mothers and continued using her voice to challenge outdated beliefs about womanhood, motherhood, and self-worth. When she stood beside Nneka at her graduation, tears streamed freely. You did it, she whispered. No, Mama, Nneka replied. We did. Ngozi's story would later be adapted into a book and documentary. She was invited to speak globally and received awards, but none of it compared to the joy of seeing her daughter become everything she had dreamed of and more. What started as heartbreak became a revolution in her own little way, and one quiet evening, sitting under the soft glow of the moon, Ngozi whispered to herself, I thought Chike ruined me, but it gifted me the strength to become the woman I never imagined I could be.